The rain had been falling since noon, steady and unforgiving, like a metronome ticking down something inevitable. I remember thinking, don't run in heels, as I jogged across the glass lobby of Romentec, my reflection slicing itself into glistening marble. I was late not by much, just 5 minutes, but enough to feel like I was already behind. My hands clutched the slim folder of my pitch, a strategic AI model I'd spent 6 months building. It was meant to be my step into upper leadership, my reward, my arrival. I didn't notice the silence on the executive floor until I stepped off the elevator. It was too quiet. No clattering of keyboards, no murmured phone calls, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the weight of something unsaid. The boardroom door was open, but no one spoke. No laughter, no polite "Alyx, there you are." Just Mr. Remen standing at the end of the long table, like a painting that didn't belong in the room. He didn't smile. Instead, he held a file, a manila folder, thick and clean. He opened it with the precision of someone who wanted you to watch. Inside were photos, printed ones. My breath stopped. It was me. And Zara, my Zara, a selfie of us on a weekend getaway in Hunza, her lips against my cheek. Another me, asleep in her lap on the old brown couch in the apartment we swore would be ours forever, even one I didn't know existed. Me, at her birthday, slipping a ring, not an engagement ring, just a promise onto her finger. Her eyes closed, her mouth parted in awe. I felt stripped. Not naked, unskinned. I looked up. How did you, Mr. Raymond didn't sit? You're smart, Alyx, too smart to be this foolish. He said it like he was disappointed in my intelligence, not my humanity. I held my ground. What is this? He didn't answer right away. Just closed the file, tapped it against the table, and said, "You've made choices, private ones. Unfortunately, they intersect with business." There were no witnesses in the room, just 2 security guards outside, pretending they weren't listening. "I love her," I said, almost without meaning to, as if saying it could explain anything, as if that word still meant anything in the walls of that company. He chuckled low, bitter. "You think that matters? You think loving my daughter gives you leverage?" I didn't respond. My throat was closing, but not from tears, from shame. Then his voice changed, softer but more menacing. "This can go 2 ways." I already knew where it was going. The air changed. My stomach knew it before my mind caught up. "You'll end it. You'll resign, quietly. I'll make sure your name is preserved if you cooperate. But if you make a scene, well, your contract violations give me more than enough reason." And then he stepped closer. "There's a third option," he sighed. "You can stay, but you'll have to show me your loyalty personally." The silence after that was a scream. I didn't move. Not for 5 full seconds. The part of me that always negotiated, always explained, always softened herself into someone palatable, she died in those 5 seconds. Then I laughed. Just once. Sharp and small like glass cracking under a heel. "Go to hell," I whispered. I turned and walked out, folder still in hand. But my hands were shaking so badly, the papers spilled down the hallway. I didn't stop to pick them up. I didn't wait for the elevator. I punched the button and slammed down the emergency stairs, taking them 3 at a time until the city lights hit my face through the glass windows of the exit. I could still feel the folder in his hand. The images. The way he said "personally." By the time I reached the ground floor, the breath I'd been holding finally burst out, and with it, the tremble in my knees began. I leaned against a marble column, heart pounding so hard I thought I'd throw up. It wasn't just the job. It wasn't even the threat. It was the knowing. The knowing that Zara hadn't told me her father knew. How long had she known? The rain poured beyond the glass, people rushing by with umbrellas. I stood there, soaked in fluorescent light, no longer sure who I was or where I belonged. I didn't call her. I didn't want to hear her voice if it didn't sound like war. The elevator dinged behind me. My phone buzzed. A single message. Zara. My dad said we need to talk. And just like that, I knew. The boardroom wasn't where it broke. It was already broken. I just hadn't dared to look down. Until now. 2 years ago, I wore clothes that didn't speak. Blouses in soft grays, pencil skirts in navy. My shoes clicked too loud, so I walked softer. My lipstick was always nude, barely a whisper on my face. I was one of the youngest strategists at Rementech, and I intended to climb the corporate ladder one unremarkable rung at a time. No headlines, no drama, just numbers. Quiet excellence. And then I saw her. Zara Rimmon, the CEO's only daughter, notorious, brilliant, unbothered. She wasn't part of the corporate chain. She was more like gravity, untouchable, but everything shifted when she entered the room. That first time I saw her, she was standing in the conference room window, barefoot, legs crossed on a leather chair, sipping espresso and arguing with 3 VPs like they were interns. Her laugh cracked the glass of decorum. I stood outside the room holding a report. She noticed me. And smiled. It began with emails, coded compliments embedded in project notes, then shared rides after late nights. Zara was reckless with affection, pulling my hand under the table during board meetings, slipping notes into my bag. You look like an unsolved poem today. She called me her favorite rebellion. I told myself it was thrilling, dangerous, something rare. No one knew. Or so we thought. We rented a flat on the edge of the city, one no one at Rementech would ever suspect. It had peeling paint and a crooked bookshelf, and she loved it because she could be herself there. We decorated it in pieces candles that smelled like forests, coffee mugs from old bookstores, secondhand rugs, mismatched wine glasses. It felt like another planet where no one's last name carried weight. We made love under open windows. The city air thick with summer dust and jasmine. She was chaos. I was precision. Together, we made a kind of silent thunder, but somewhere between the stolen weekends and whispered mornings, I began to shrink. It wasn't obvious at first. Just quiet compromises. I stopped visiting my friends from university too. Risky, too many questions. I missed my niece's birthday because Zara wanted a just us weekend. I accepted Zara's criticism of my wardrobe, her teasing jabs about how you're too polished, babe. Like you're playing office cosplay. I let her laugh when I talked about becoming a senior VP someday. I'll be the CEO's girlfriend and the CEO's daughter. Isn't that enough for us? She'd say with a smirk, tugging me back into bed, and I'd smile. I always smiled because I was in love, because I believed she loved me back. There were warning signs. My mentor, Manol, pulled me aside once after a presentation and said, "You used to speak like a woman with a map. Now you sound like someone reading directions from someone else's mouth." I laughed it off. A friend, Tanya, joked that I was disappearing. Do we need to file a missing persons report? Or did you move into your girlfriend's pocket? And then there were the subtle moments with her father. Mr. Raymond never said much to me, just looks. Long, unreadable stares during meetings. His praise always carried an edge, like it came with a string I couldn't see. Once, after I presented a market forecast, Zara helped me tweak. He said, "You've got potential, Alyx, but remember where the lines are drawn." I didn't understand what he meant at the time. Or maybe I didn't want to. Then there was the dinner. Zara had invited me to a private family celebration. Rementech had landed a huge investor. I knew it was risky, but she insisted, said she. Wanted me to be part of her world. It was lavish. Cold glassware, overcooked steak, and false smiles. I sat beside Zara, our knees brushing beneath the table, and for a while I felt Scene. Chosen dot until Mr. Raymond stood to toast. To those who understand boundaries, he said, eyes never leaving mine. And to those who don't confuse opportunity with entitlement. The table laughed politely. I smiled tightly. Zara squeezed my thigh under the table, but even that felt more like a warning than comfort. After dinner, I asked her what that meant. She lit a cigarette on the balcony and said, "My father always gets what he wants. Until I don't let him." I should have asked her what she meant. I should have asked her who she was warning me or him, but I just nodded. Because I was already in too deep dot, I had stopped being Alyx the strategist. I was now Alyx the secret. The risk. The thing that needed hiding but couldn't be let go. Some nights, in the apartment, I caught glimpses of myself in the mirror dark circles under my eyes. Laughter that didn't quite reach my chest. Ambition folded away like a silk blouse. Never worn. Once I asked her, "Do you ever think about what happens if they find out?" She shrugged, pulling me into her lap. "They won't. But if they do?" She kissed me hard and said, "Then we'll burn the whole damn tower down." But now, standing in the ashes of that tower 2 years later, I can't help but wonder if she meant it. Or if I was the one meant to burn. Back then, I didn't know that love can look like possession when it's dressed up in poetry. I didn't know that erasing yourself for someone else isn't sacrifice. It's slow suicide. I didn't know that. The girl in the conference room window would be the beginning of my undoing. But I know now, and there's no going back to neutral tones or silence. There's only what comes next. I didn't sleep the night after the boardroom my apartment hours really felt like a crime scene. The walls still smelled faintly of vanilla incense and stormy rain. Her coat was draped over the chair like she'd be back in 5 minutes. One of her books, roomy, underlined with her messy handwriting, lay cracked open beside the bed. Her voice still lived here. Her absence was louder than the thunder outside, but I didn't call Zara. I needed her to come to me. To choose me by morning, she hadn't at 10:06 a.m. I caved. My message was short. Just 3 words. "We need to talk." She replied within minutes. "I'm coming." She arrived without knocking. Hair tied back, no makeup, Rementec hoodie like armor. Her eyes scanned me like I was a problem on a whiteboard. Her face gave nothing away. Did he really say that? She asked flatly. I nodded. He has photos, emails, the apartment lease, everything. And what did you say? I told him to go to hell. She exhaled like I'd complicated something. You didn't deny it. The way she said deny cut deeper than I expected. I wasn't going to pretend you're not the most important thing in my life. She sat down on the edge of the couch, our couch, and stared out the window. The storm had passed, but everything still looked gray. I didn't think he'd take it this far, she murmured. He's always watched me, but this? He's unhinged. I stepped closer. Zara, we can fight this, together. But her silence was louder than his threats. When she finally turned to me, her mouth was tight, her voice careful. You shouldn't have let it get so obvious. I blinked. Obvious? You're smart, Alyx. You know how optics work. Dating the CEO's daughter while gunning for a director role? I stepped back like she'd slapped me. Are you blaming me? No, she snapped. But you were reckless, and now he's threatening both of us. The distance between us became a chasm. I gave up everything for you, I whispered. Time, friendships, opportunities, I disappeared into you. And now that it's not convenient, you're rewriting it as a mistake? Zara looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time that morning. Something flickered behind her eyes, guilt, maybe. Or the desire to not feel any. You were a part of my life, she said. Maybe an important part. But maybe it was. Just a phase. That word, phased out, it shattered me. Like I was a hairstyle. a playlist, a piece of clothing she outgrew. I wasn't a phase, I said. My voice cracked, but I held steady. I was your home. Zara stood, adjusted her hoodie. Didn't meet my eyes. You should leave the company quietly. Don't make this uglier than it has to be. I'll try to talk to him. Maybe I can get you severance. Something. She left without hugging me. That afternoon, my keycard stopped working. Security walked me to my desk. No one made eye contact. My email had been disabled. My company laptop locked. My ID photo erased from the intranet. A week later, my LinkedIn profile vanished. Recruiters stopped replying. A friend from another firm messaged, "Hey, just got off a call with someone from Romantech. You okay?" They were building a narrative around me, quietly, efficiently, like I was just a bug in their system. They had to quarantine, unstable, unprofessional, disloyal. Zara didn't return my texts. The last one she wrote said, "You lied. You let." Me burned out, no response. Rent was due. I had no job, no references, no income. I tried calling old friends. They were polite but vague. One of them said, "This sounds complicated." I don't want to get involved. I wanted to scream. Involved in what? My own life? The apartment became a mausoleum. Every corner held evidence of her. The chipped mug she only used for chai. The perfume bottle, her favorite, still sealed in its velvet box. A dried rose taped to the fridge. Her lipstick print on the mirror. A playlist still queued on Spotify. I sat on the floor that night, the lights off. The city whispering through the cracks in the window. I opened a box, not metaphorically. A literal box. I gathered everything. The photos, the notes, the roomy book, the hoodie she left behind, the mug, the rose, the sealed perfume. All of it. One by one, I placed each item inside. My hands were shaking. My breath ragged. Then I grabbed a match and lit it. The flame caught. Fast. A flash of blue, then orange. It smelled like jasmine, smoke, and something else I couldn't name. I didn't cry. I just watched. And as the fire swallowed the last photo of us in that apartment, I realized I had spent 2 years erasing myself. Shrinking, softening, editing, so she could shine. So I could belong. And now I was ash. But the thing about ashes, they're sterile. They don't rot. They don't infect. They just sit, quiet, waiting for something to grow. At sunrise, I stood barefoot on the balcony. The sky was the color of bruises. Fading. My phone buzzed once. A calendar reminder. Pitch review. Executive floor. 9 a.m. I deleted it. And for the first time in weeks, I showered with the door open, music blaring. I didn't use her shampoo. I didn't wear nude lipstick. I wore red. Deep, angry red. The untouched perfume bottle still sat on the dresser. I considered it. Opened it, let the scent waft out. Then I closed the cap. She loved it. I never did. I slid it back in the drawer, and I made coffee. Not for her, not for anyone. Just for me. That night, I wrote something in my journal. Not a poem, not a plan. Just a sentence. This wasn't the end of the story. It was the part where I stopped letting other people write it. It would take time. I knew that, but something was beginning. Not revenge, not rebirth, not yet. Just space. And in that space, I was still here. And I wasn't done. I left the city before dawn, taking the earliest train out with nothing but a backpack, a half-charged phone, and the kind of grief that doesn't make noise anymore. I didn't tell anyone. There was no one left to tell. I didn't even know where I was going until the platform signs blurred past, and I picked a coastal town at random. Rovara Bay, a name I'd never heard, which made it perfect. I wanted to disappear without dying. Just enough silence to be reborn without anyone watching. When I stepped off the train, the sky was washed in a soft gray mist. The air smelled like brine and pine. And for the first time in weeks, I felt weightless. not better. Just emptied. I found a rundown guest house 2 blocks from the shore. It had peeling paint, stiff bed sheets, and a cracked mirror in the hallway. That showed me a woman I didn't quite recognize. She had tired eyes, unstyled hair, and a posture that said she wasn't used to taking up space. Still, she didn't look away. The bookstore found me by accident. I wandered in to escape the sudden rain. It was small, cluttered, and smelled of cedar and old paper. The kind of place that made you lower your voice and feel like the books were listening. The owner was an older woman named Lena. Short, silver curls, dark, perceptive eyes. She looked me up and down once, then simply said, "You new in town?" I nodded. She offered me tea, then a mop. Then by sunset, a job cache only under the table. "You look like someone who needs to be around stories," she said. I didn't ask what she saw in me. Maybe the same thing I saw in the mirror, a woman who'd cracked but hadn't shattered. Not yet. Days bled into each other like watercolors. I shelved books in the mornings, unpacked deliveries in the afternoon, and watched the tides every evening. I stopped checking my phone. It lay in my drawer, off and untouched. No calls. No reminders. Just a single voicemail from a blocked number. I never played. I began journaling again. Pages of ink smeared by rain or tears, I couldn't always tell the difference. I wrote memories, half-dreams, rage-laced confessions, and unsent letters to Zara, to Mr. Remen, to the version of me who once thought silence was strength. One morning, Lena left a poetry book on the front counter for me. Inside was a sticky note in delicate cursive, "You are not your silence." Lee kept that note in my pocket every day after. The sea became my confessional. I walked barefoot on the sand each evening, letting the cold water bite at my ankles. I whispered truths into the wind. I let myself feel things I had buried in boardrooms and bedrooms and business casual lies. Here, I didn't have to perform resilience. I didn't have to justify pain or dress it in productivity. I could be ruined. And real. One night, I wore the broken heel I'd saved, the stiletto I'd worn the first time Zara called me perfect. It snapped during an investor dinner, and she had laughed, saying, "You're too strong for dainty things." I kept it like a relic. That night, I walked into the sea holding it in my hand. And when I was ankle deep in black water, I let it go. It sank quickly, quietly. I whispered, "I'm not too strong for softness. I'm just too soft for people who mistake control for love." Slowly, I started to rebuild. Not just routines, identity. I read obsessively on whistleblower laws, digital footprints, corporate retaliation. I learned how men like Mr. Remen operated through silence, shame, and the careful choreography of power. But the system had cracks. And I had lived in its belly long enough to know where they were. I began documenting everything, writing down memories, interactions, dates, names. I opened a private drive and stored copies of old emails I'd retrieved from my personal archives. I downloaded guides on filing anonymous reports. I reached out to a nonprofit from a burner email asking if someone were forced to quit under coercion. "Is there a case?" They replied within hours. There was. The more I learned, the more I realized power isn't in getting your job back. It's in making sure no one else has to lose theirs the same way. Lena never asked for details, but she knew. One evening, after we closed the shop, I found her sitting by the window with 2 cups of tea. She passed one to me and said, "You remind me of myself when I left the man who kept my voice in a jar." I smiled. "Did you ever get it back?" She smirked. I made a new one, sharper, lower, louder. We sat in silence after that. But it wasn't empty. It was sacred. My transformation didn't come in a moment. No music swelled. No tears fell in cinematic slow motion. It came quietly. And the first time I looked at myself in the mirror and didn't flinch. And the first laugh that didn't taste like bitterness. And the first night I slept without waking from a dream of Zara turning away. Didn't become someone new. I just became someone I had abandoned. Alyx, 28, strategist, lover, burned, survivor, storyteller, and soon whistleblower. I bought a new journal. On the first page I wrote, healing isn't polite. Sometimes it walks, barefoot across broken glass and dares you to follow. I was ready now, not for revenge. Not yet, but for truth. And this time, no one else would write it for me. Alyx stepped off the train like a woman reborn. The skyline hadn't changed, still steel and chrome, sharp edges and glass towers pretending to touch heaven. But she had. The city that once swallowed her now felt small in her bones. Her hair was pinned back neatly, blazer crisp, lips blood red. Not Zara's red, hers. The red she used to avoid, afraid it was too much, too loud, too her. Now it was armor. She didn't return to Rim and Tech or to any glossy boardroom where smiles were weapons and silence was currency. She walked into the modest office of She Speaks, a female-led nonprofit squeezed between a law firm and a yoga studio. No valet, no espresso bar. Just purpose and a coffee pot that worked if you kicked it. The director, Mina, eyed her resume once and said, "Tell me the real story, not the bullet points." So Alyx did. Off the record, she told them about the weekends she spent buried in Zara's arms and Mondays, where she sat across from Mr. Rimmon, who smiled just a little too long. She told them about the veiled threats. Be careful who you associate with Alyx and the strategic erasure of her work. The day her email went dead, the box of things waiting by the elevator, the way Zara's voice went cold when it mattered most. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. She simply told the truth. They didn't ask her to relive it again. Instead, they asked, "What do you want to do with it?" That's when Alyx smiled. "I want to make sure he never gets to do it again." Weeks turned into months. Alyx worked quietly at She Speaks, drafting policy templates, coaching interns, helping other women write exit statements that didn't sound like apologies. But in the evenings, her real work began. She built a case slowly, meticulously. She reached out to old contacts, former Romantech employees who had slipped out the back door without fanfare. Some ignored her, some sent cautious replies. But a few sent screenshots, emails, names, memories, fragments of truth. There was Julia, a former assistant who resigned after refusing Mr. Rimmon's mentorship. There was Haritha, who was asked to change data sets to match the pitch narrative, then was made redundant. There was even a male developer who said, "I thought it was just politics, but yeah, you weren't paranoid." She archived everything, encrypted drives, legal notes, timelines, redacted names, pattern evidence. Mr. Rimmon's empire hadn't fallen yet, but cracks spiderwebbed through the marble. She wasn't after gossip. She was after precedent. The whispers started quietly. Someone mentioned seeing her at a tech networking event, standing by the startup mentorship booth. Her name appeared under a Subway ad, "Fund Fearless Invest in Women Who Build." The campaign idea, hers, the photo, her silhouette, the tagline. Her voice. Zara saw it first, apparently because one night after a charity gala where Alyx had spoken short, sharp, brilliant, Zara found her in the courtyard near the valet stand. She looked thinner, tanner. Her wrist glittered with diamonds, and on her left hand, a perfect oval-cut sapphire. The papers called it a modern fairy tale. Alyx called it an edit. Zara didn't smile. "You're not seriously doing this," she whispered. "I already." Zara touched her arm lightly, eyes pleading. "You're going to drag everyone through the mud. You'll ruin us." Alyx tilted her head. "There's no us to ruin." Zora blinked, stunned by the softness of her tone. There was no bitterness in it. No nostalgia dot, just finality. Alyx stepped away. You chose your father, I chose myself. Zara opened her mouth, closed it, said nothing. Back at the nonprofit, Mina handed her a sealed envelope one afternoon from a whistleblower protection firm. They're willing to back you if you want to go public. Alyx stared at it. She'd come here hoping to help others. She never expected to be offered the chance to finish her own story, but she didn't open the envelope. Not yet. Instead, she pulled a red lipstick from her bag and walked to the bathroom. In the mirror, her reflection didn't blink. She applied it slowly, deliberately, like a signature on a manifesto. Then she pulled out the USB drive from her coat pocket. Years of silence, deception, warnings, and betrayals, all compressed into something no larger than a thumb. She looked at herself once more. I'm not burning anything this time, she murmured. I'm lighting the way. Alyx didn't go viral dot, she didn't want to. Instead, she made the first move in Shadow's filing formal documentation with the help of the nonprofit's legal team, submitting protected reports to oversight agencies, and passing anonymous tips to investigative journalists who cared more about truth than clicks. She didn't lead the charge. She armed it, and the rumblings began. HR emails leaked. Old interns gave statements. The company held a closed-door emergency board meeting. Zara's engagement post went suddenly private. Alyx walked through the city like a ghost in daylight. People didn't recognize her, but they would. Because soon, the woman who once disappeared would be the reason others didn't have to. She never needed revenge. She needed reality to catch up dot, and as the testimonies piled up, as the emails made headlines, as Rimmon Tech stock dipped and Mr. Rimmon took a leave of absence, Alyx knew she was no longer the girl behind the conference room glass dot. She was the woman writing the glass-breaking memo dot, and this time, she wasn't signing it an apology dot, she was signing it in red. The auditorium shimmered with curated light and curated faces. Every seat was full. Cameras rolled. Lanyards bounced against tailored blazers. It was the annual Women in Tech Rising conference, funded ironically by Rimmon Tech's glossy new Diversity and Integrity Initiative. Alyx stood backstage, heartbeat steady. Her heels tapped once, then still dot across the curtain. She saw the names scrolling on the event banner, names she used to admire, names that once ignored her resume, names that only started calling back when the scandal began to whisper, but her name was there. Now, Alyx H., keynote speaker, not Alyx, former employee, not Alyx, rumor. Just Alyx. She stepped into the spotlight. I was once told. She began, that staying silent keeps the peace. A pause. Her voice calm, clear, but silence only protects the people who built the war. Laughter from some, stillness from most. I used to sit in rooms like this, she said, scanning the crowd. With a smile I practiced in the mirror, wearing heels that blistered, laughing too softly, working twice as hard, and shrinking just enough to fit. Her eyes swept the front row. There he was, Mr. Rimmon, pretending boredom, arms folded, tie knotted too tight dot, and beside him, trying not to be seen, dash Sarah dot, no makeup this time. No press cameras shadowing her, just hollow eyes and lips pressed tight. Alyx continued, they told me I was reckless, for loving the wrong person, for asking the wrong questions, for refusing to disappear quietly. She clicked her remote dot behind her. The screen glowed. A voice played, anonymous and modulated. He offered me a raise if I stayed late. I didn't. I was laid off the next week. Another voice, we were told to pretend nothing happened, that our manager's behavior was misinterpreted. And another, I spoke up once. My access was revoked, my name deleted. The room shifted. Silence. Then something else. Presence. Not the kind that clapped, the kind that listened. These voices, Alyx said, stepping aside, were almost erased. I was almost erased. She looked down for just a beat, then up, but I wasn't. She placed her hand on the podium because I realized silence is too expensive and truth is cheaper than shame. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones lifted. Journalists moved closer. Someone whispered to their seatmate, "That's her. That's the girl from the case." But Alyx didn't flinch. "I'm not here to destroy anyone," she said. "I'm here because we all deserve to build. Build companies, build futures, build boundaries, build truth that doesn't require sacrifice." She finished without flourish. No dramatic mic drop. No victory dance. Just one last line. "The people who hurt you hope you never speak. But when you do speak loud enough to make them listen." Applause followed, not polite, not performative. A wave, full-bodied, collective, but Alyx was already stepping off stage. Behind the curtain, her phone buzzed. Press. Attorneys. Her lawyer. Send a one-word message. Done. An hour later, Rimmon board voted to remove Mr. Rimmon publicly. A press statement announced serious allegations under review. Shareholders pulled out. Government oversight opened formal investigations. By evening, every major media outlet was running variations of "From Victim to Voice, Woman Who Took Down Tech Giant Speaks Out." But Alyx didn't read them that night as the city blinked. Outside her apartment window sheared a knock. Zara. No gloss. No velvet gloves. Just a hoodie and trembling hands. They sat across from each other in the quiet. "I had to come," Zara whispered. Alyx said nothing. "Was any of it real?" She asked, her voice cracked. "The way we used to, was it just rebellion? Were you just—" Alyx looked at her long and hard, then quietly, "Real enough to break me, not enough to build me?" Zara winced. "I didn't know my father would." "You didn't stop him." Silence. Zara's eyes welled. "I didn't know how." Alyx stood. "That's the difference. I learned." The door closed gently behind Zara. Alyx didn't cry. She didn't feel victorious. She felt open, as if something had finally settled. Like the last puzzle piece didn't complete a picture, just cleared the table. Weeks passed. She launched her own startup, Flame Tech, a place where women, queer people, and underrepresented voices built without compromise. Not performative equity, lived equity. The office had no corner suites. Everyone's nameplate matched in size and shine. Hers read, Alyx H., founder. One evening, she found a letter on her desk. Handwritten, no return address. "Dear Alyx, I was in the audience the day you spoke. My boss once touched my shoulder too long. My stomach twisted, but I laughed. After your speech, I walked into his office. I said no. And I left because of you. Thank you." Alyx smiled. She opened. Her drawer. There, untouched, sat a bottle of perfume. Not Zara's favorite. Her own. She dabbed it gently behind her ears. Then faced the mirror. No script. No mask. Just the woman who had the last word, because she earned it. And the woman in the mirror, she didn't blink.